Good morning. It's 9 a.m., Monday, August 28th, 2023. This is the Muscatine County Board of Supervisors. I'd like to call the meeting to order. First is to review the agenda.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Nathan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next is discussion on possible action to approve a service order agreement with Horizon Architecture for the courthouse roof project. Morning, Jim.
Morning. As you're all aware, the county has an agreement with Mike Nolan and Horizon Architecture just a standing agreement that allows him to perform those type services for the county. And then as individual projects come along, we enter into agreements for individual projects that are more particular or more detailed. The board's had some discussion in the past over the courthouse roof and the work that needs to be done up there. I think the board's even in the past taken some action to sign an agreement to at least do the roof and gutter repairs. The contractor sent a contract back to the county here a couple of months ago, and I got involved in reviewing the contract. And in light of the departure of Sherry Seawright, she and I think Oscar were kind of ramrodding most of the efforts in this area. Nancy and myself and Eric met internally and then met with Mike for purposes of taking a look at the entirety of the roof, because we had several components or pieces that had been bid. And after looking at the roof and inspecting the roof, it was determined that the highest priority in terms of immediate repair would be the clock tower. And that's because the clock tower is leaking, which is of course allowing water down and doing, there's some masonry work that's going to need to be done to retuck point stone and do those sorts of things. We also have the contractor fresh in their numbers. He came over and met with us last week, and we sat down and we walked through the project, that being the clock tower, and then the roof, and then the gutter system. And the gutter system, as you're aware, is built into the roof, so it's going to be a little bit of an effort. So what we've done is sent him back to pull all of that together into one proposal and make sure we have adequate numbers. And then the intent is to get that information to the board so the board can make a decision about how to proceed forward with the expenditure of those funds. In the meantime, we've engaged Mike, and the agreement that you have before you today is a not to exceed agreement for about $11,000 for his participation in this process. And I guess the feeling from those of us that are involved in participation in the process is so that we have somebody eyes on if there's repairs and other things that need to be done, that we can make sure that the repair is appropriate, or if things need to be assessed in terms of how bad they are or they aren't, or when it needs to be done in terms of priority of funding ultimately is an issue. All of that is intended to be included in this agreement that you have before you today. We have the master agreement, but we need to do this specialized agreement for this particular purpose. He's already invested, I don't know, he's made 2 trips to Muscatine. Oscar and Eric and myself and Nancy have all participated in those meetings, and again, most recently with the contractor last week. As the board may or may not remember, for those maybe that weren't here, this is a specialized roof, the slate roof, the copper work. There's not a whole lot of people that do it, and they eventually found this company in Illinois, that Renaissance, that does this sort of specialized work. So that's who we've been dealing with, but that's the purpose of the agreement before the board today. Any questions from the board? Thank you.
So this is, Jim, is this like a construction management agreement, or?
No, this is just an oversight. The construction management would continue to be with Eric and his office. Eric and Brandon actually both came to the meeting last week with the contractor. So this is just a really general oversight, because not only we have the roof replacement to be concerned with, but if there's damage to the gutters or there's masonry work that needs to be done, we need to be able to make sure that what we are being advised needs to be done is the best thing that we can do for the interests of the county and the longevity of the roof. So it's not Mike doing anything particular with regard to inspections. It's more the general inspection process or oversight with Eric and his office, and then if we have an issue, Mike comes in. And that issue might be we need to do some tuck pointing and we want to put that out for bid. This company can do all of that stuff, but we were clear with them last week that the specialized area of this, we need to work with them on, but there's other work that comes up that we could bid out that we would like to be able to do that, just so that we abide by our obligations under the law for that type of work.
Okay, good, thank you.
Is this budgeted for the roof repair that we've had before, Jeff? You know,
What's that?
was this
Well, this
included
would
in
be part of a
budget?
project budget.
Right,
for the
we
roof.
have a
It is
project,
included
we
in
have a
it.
project budget, and this would come out of that project budget.
Yeah, the question is, if we find stuff we didn't anticipate, and do we have enough budget funds and enough contingency in our budget funds to manage it? Because this is a very specialized trade and it's a very expensive process.
There is a chance that the original quote could go up, depending on.
So far, it hasn't. And what we are doing right now is, the original quote was for everything but the clock tower. And then a quote came in via a separate email or separate letter for the clock tower. We had him pull all that together, refreshing his numbers, and then see what it would cost difference-wise, what the economy or savings would be if we did it all at once versus do the clock tower first and then the rest of the roof later and sort of work our way down. And so the thinking is that we need to see what the total package is, what the board can do with funding. If we need to break the funding up or break the project up, then we can board understands what that is, what the cost of that is, what the time of that is, and then if we need to spread that out over a longer period of time to generate the revenue, then that's what we do.
Yeah, as I recall, last time we worked up in that area, scaffold erection and scaffold was a very significant expense.
And it'd be, when they did the roof, it'd be around the perimeter.
Around
when they
the
do
perimeter, the
tower.
whole building, the whole
Yeah.
tower, you could be 125,000, I'm gonna guess, in scaffolding, to get it up there and get it there. So when you're up there, you wanna make sure you do everything that you ever have to do, cause you don't wanna come back 3 years from now and pay that again.
And if we break it up, Danny, more to your question, if we break it up, we wanna have the confidence and the understanding that what's there will weather whatever that additional period of time is. We won't put ourselves in a position where we have a problem, that we just ignored. And so, in other words, if the roof would last another 5 years, the board needs to know that, the board needs to understand that, they need to have a professional opinion relative to the longevity of what's there, and then the economies of doing it all at once, or the cost of breaking it up.
Got it.
So that's kind of where we're trying to head, so that when we get to the board, we can paint a clear picture for you.
And this is, the buildings of this age, we had some trouble in the past where, maybe some of the masonry work wasn't done according, age appropriate. You have to use different types of mortars so you don't get bricks spalling and stuff, and we've had that problem. So you want somebody that understands that world to direct and make sure that the contractors know that they're working on a 1910 building and period appropriate materials need to be used. Okay, so I would move the approval.
Second.
I got a motion by Jeff, second by Nathan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion passes. Next is discussion and possible action to approve a real estate purchase agreement, subject to approval by the Muscatine City Council and execution of a 28E agreement between the City of Muscatine and Muscatine County.
As the board will recall, we met a couple of months ago relative to what would be a joint law enforcement shooting range to be located here in Muscatine County that would be used by the City of Muscatine and Muscatine County, and then those two entities jointly manage the project, jointly manage the facility, and then work with other law enforcement agencies in the county to be able to help them use the facility as well under whatever those terms and conditions may be. There, as the board's aware, few areas in the county where this sort of facility and this sort of operation would be well suited to take place. So we don't have a significant list of places to choose from. They have been able to work with a landowner here north of town relative to the purchase of some farmland there for purposes of erecting the facility and the shooting range. We've worked back and forth over the last month on the terms of the agreement, which you have before you today as an offer that's signed by the seller to purchase, for us to purchase that property, that being the county and the city. As Scott's indicated, this is contingent on the city approving it. There's a zoning meeting set up for September 8th. I think the city's going to consider it September 7th. But the city wanted the county to make sure that we were on board before they took action, and then we both need to make sure that the zoning commission has their hearing on it as well, and that folks have an opportunity to understand. As you can see, the price for the property is obviously it's good farm ground, and we're paying a bit of a premium to get it. There are numerous contingencies that are contained in the agreement. The zoning contingency, the passage of the appropriate governmental entities, the zoning, access. We need to work through some of the tiling issues that may be on the property and how things drain. So the agreement is I think covers all the contingencies. It does have one error in it. The zoning would not be the Board of Adjustment, but it would be the Zoning Commission. That's located in section 23A, just as a clarification. So if the board takes action today and Scott signs that, we'll write in Zoning Commission and have him initial that. And so I know that the agreement went out as part of your package today so that you had an opportunity to review it. From a legal standpoint, I'm happy to answer the questions that I can at this point.
So you said it was a shooting facility, but I wanted everybody to know it's also going to be a training facility, so there's much more gonna be going on there than just shooting.
I think it's a law enforcement training facility is really the intent, and I think Eric, you'd indicated that, I think maybe Quinn, you could answer, I think, Chief Keys says maybe 40 days a year where there's actually active shooting. The rest of the year, it's really for law enforcement training. And for those that don't know the history of our law enforcement and their ability to train with weapons and other items, typically we had the Frank Nelson, it's been used at his place for many, many years. With Frank's passing, we no longer have a place to do that, and our law enforcement agencies don't. There's one other private landowner that continues to allow us outside of the county, but this is getting to be more and more difficult for our law enforcement to find places. And so it's probably time, I think, that we look at it and provide a place. And this is, again, law enforcement only, Muscatine County law enforcement's really. And I think people question how many deputies do you have, Quinn?
Yeah, 24 sworn, and
20.
I have another 50 correctional staff. Not all of the correctional staff are certified to carry, but we do have a number of our correctional officers that will be required to qualify as well for doing transports, whether it be county inmates or federal inmates, things like that. But as far as range time goes, actual shooting days, I would say we probably do less than a dozen days a year.
And we would also, our conservation officers, the county does have 3?
We have 2 certified now, and we will have a third one.
Yeah, we'll have 3 that all require certification and continuing, so I think that's the intent of this facility.
Were other locations seeked out?
Without getting too deep in the weeds, to my knowledge, there were 2 locations in the county that were identified as potentially suitable. And this location was the location chosen between those 2 to try to negotiate a purchase on for this particular purpose. I mean, part of it's its proximity to town, and it's a hard surfaced road, and you have those things going for you as well. And so, I couldn't tell you the other actual location, but I could tell you that there were 2.
So if this is agreed upon, we're gonna have to come up with funding right now to purchase that land, being our half around $210,000, right?
Yep.
And Quinn mentioned, when I spoke to him this morning, that's gonna be paid for out of the commissary fund, which isn't taxpayers' dollars. That's money they collect from prisoners for their services, or things they need while they're in jail. When that's done, I mean, we purchased the ground. I also talked to Tony this morning, police chief. We have to figure out how we're gonna pay for the rest of this thing if we decide to move forward, and that may be in the tune of $800,000, and it sounds like we can, this may be all right to be a year and a half, two and a half years down the road as we figure out how to come up with that additional money, so we don't put an additional tax burden on the public. So I just wanted to state that.
It's a process, as I would say. This is getting the ability to purchase the ground. There's a zoning process that'll go through, where there'll be, the zoning commission will hear, for and against, hear the plans and any proposal, and it'll go through that processing. And I believe, it's contingent on that, the purchase of this is contingent on a successful.
Eric may want, I don't know if you want to speak to the zoning aspect of it, Eric, or in terms of its actual, what the county ordinance provides versus the state law provides.
Sure, there's, this type of facility does not meet the definition of a public shooting range that's found in our ordinance. However, there's a code section in Iowa code that requires any shooting range or any land that's developed or approved for purposes of shooting range to be reviewed by the county zoning commission. So that's why it's on the agenda for September 8th with the county zoning commission. I'm just now starting to do my development report work as I've gotten all the application, the joint application with the city and the county. So that will occur public hearing on September 8th with everything that's submitted. There is information on how the site was selected, the process. I don't want to get too far into the weeds outside of that public hearing. Because again, this is just the conditional purchase offer that's being decided today.
And so the zoning commission will hold public hearing on the issue.
Yes.
They'll have all the documentation on what the proposal is, more details. Anybody has question about the details, that'll be in the zoning commission packet, which is the September 8th meeting,
Right.
which will be a published document, so everyone would have the ability to see that.
The date's been published, the agenda's set, and, you know, I mean, everything that's been submitted as far as design, site selection, how process, that's public information, we can make that available. The range design standards, things that the city and the county submitted to us, we have that, we can make that available upon request. But that would all be presented at the September 8th, hearing.
I think it's important to note that the amount of days that it'll be utilized in shooting training is one thing, but my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Quinn, that it'll be utilized for other training
More so.
along with, in addition to just shooting training. It'll be utilized in many more fashions.
In the grand scheme of things, the shooting aspect of it is very minimal.
Right.
We do signation training, force-on-force training. There's multiple different use of force options training, recertifications, whether it be taser, OC, baton, impact rounds from a 40 millimeter. There's a lot more training that goes into this than just shooting. Having the ability to host those outside trainings. Right now, I mean, you watch the news for an hour and you're gonna find a news story where law enforcement training is brought into question. We haven't had to deal with that, thankfully, but it's a national trend right now. Like I said, you can't watch the news for more than an hour without seeing them dragging some law enforcement officer through the mud. I don't wanna deal with that. I don't wanna have to deal with that. So having the ability to have a location to be able to do that, to host those trainings. Right now, if we host anything, we're very limited on size. I've got, I can house probably 15 people in my office, in our training room. It's very difficult to bring in those outside instructors, to the point that we haven't done it.
And you're sending people elsewhere and.
I'm sending people to, this week, there's a couple guys going to Colorado, back and forth to Des Moines. We've upped our training budget, every year, over the course of the last 3 years. And we burned through that relatively quickly.
think it's also important to note that where the sheriff department currently shoots, that there has been notoriously some ricochet issues, and you've claimed you've even been hit by a fragment or something.
So, traditionally, when I first started here back in the late nineties, we shot at our range down in Wise County. It's a privately owned range. The gentleman that owns that range allows us to shoot there, has allowed us to shoot there for years and years. He's done us a great service by allowing that. From there, we moved out to Nelson's Range, which is less than a mile west of the ground that we're looking at now. We shot there for a number of years. We spent the amount of time helping Frank out with mowing. He had some health issues. We would go out and help him mow. We'd go out and rebuild berm. When Frank passed, we lost that ability to shoot there. So now we're back down at the range in Wise County. Last week, 2 weeks ago, whenever we got the torrential rains, part of the berm collapsed. So we're not able to actually get into the range right now. So there's constant struggles with being able to access a facility where, again, if we move forward, not gonna be an issue.
It also sounds like Tony, the police chief, has some issues where he currently shoots, which is out at the West Liberty Gun Club, right? And there's some training concerns he has out there, and he did mention without this facility that we could be in jeopardy of losing our SWAT team.
So, with our TAC team, with our SWAT team, essentially, we do qualify with different weapons, different munitions, several times a year. Some of those munitions we're not able to use up there. Some of the shooting movements that we do, we're not able to do up there. The team that we have in place today has come into fruition over the last 4 to 5 years. We put a lot of work into putting that team together, to the point now that we cover Muscatine, Wise, and Cedar County. We've been called, our team has been called down to Burlington on a number of occasions to help DEA, FBI serve search warrants down there. So through that work that we've done, the man hours that we put in to develop that team were being used across Eastern Iowa. With the range facility in West Liberty, again, with the, how we set up those drills, we're not able to complete those drills in West Liberty.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? I'll move the approval.
Are we gonna have any discussion on it, or everybody in these 2 rows,
This
I
is
believe,
what
is
we're
here?
here for.
Yes, I will allow. State your name and go to the podium. Name and address, please.
Ted Dickey, 1701 Tipton Road. We've got a shooting range. I own a property a half mile north of there, which would be on 170th Street. We've got a shooting range a half mile on the other side of us that we listen to 3 to 4 times a week. We don't really need another one up there. And I am friends with all the deputies and the police chief. I think they need a place. We don't wanna listen to a second one out there in that neighborhood. Has anybody done anything with the wildlife and stuff in the woods and stuff behind it? They're not gonna stay there. You guys, it's a needed thing. I'm not saying that they don't need this. I'm saying that I don't wanna have to listen to everybody in Muscatine that wants to go shoot a gun. We're already listening to everybody from the Isaac Waltons. Everybody in these back 2 rows can hear that. Why do we need to listen to everything?
I don't have a good answer. I mean, when I asked Jim if we had searched out other locations, it sounds like they had only found a couple that would be feasible, and
That's not our fault, though. If it worked good over at Frank Nelson's, I never heard them there. Go buy that property. The people closer might have. Where I'm living, I don't. But to be honest with you, I try to stay away from our farm on Tuesdays and Wednesdays after 4 or 5 o'clock, because I'm so sick and tired of listening to them shooting up there at the Isaac Waltons. They face right at our farm, and that's all I hear all night long. If you guys wanna come out on a Tuesday night, listen to them. You wouldn't want this by your house. If they can keep it an indoor thing, then I'm not against it. But if they want it outdoors, then I'm 100% against it.
I know they're gonna put everything in effect to try not to, you know,
There's
cause
a
many issues.
huge sand hill behind the Isaac Walton ones. I still hear every shot that's fired up there. And that's not even supposed to be rifles. There is some.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'm not gonna get up, I'm gonna.
Okay.
I'm on, yeah, we live between.
State your name and address, please.
Oh, Dave Reed, I live on F-70.
We're 2460.
And we live between where they used to shoot at Nelson's and where the skeet range is. Ted was right at the skeet range. And what I'd like to bring up, when all this was talked about, they was gonna shoot once a week and a few times a year besides that. Well, now they shoot twice a week or 3 times a week. So whatever you people say, and they say we're gonna shoot 30 times a year, is it gonna end up being 60 times a year? Are we gonna have to listen to gunfire 3 to 4 times a week?
I can't afford the ammo this year.
You guys know.
I can't afford the ammo this year.
Well, that's okay. Well, that's what they said over there.
I can't.
You guys know if you put up that nice facility, that you're gonna start doing other training for other counties eventually, someday.
So our plan is to host trainings,
Right. Which is gonna be.
which isn't all shooting.
Well, no, and I don't have anything against your trainings inside and all that stuff. I think you guys deserve that. I just don't wanna listen to you outside.
Yeah, why don't you pass the noise around in the county? If we get to listen to one, why don't somebody else in the county get to listen to somebody else shoot? I don't know why in our neighborhood we have to listen to all of them. But
Well, I know the Ikes out there, they shoot league on Tuesdays, and on Wednesdays, the Wilton Trap Team, which is of course, that's their home range, they practice, on Wednesdays.
yeah.
And then on Saturday mornings, there's, open shooting, for,
Which-
folks that care to do it.
But their website says from 10 to 2 on Saturday mornings. I've heard them at 8 through whatever hours. And occasionally others than Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Saturdays, even once in a while on a Sunday. And that, where we live, that is directly behind us. So there's our fields, another field, earth berm, and it's like it's in our backyard usually. And with Nelson's, they were just catty corner across the road from us. We heard it, we did not like it, it was private property. We didn't even know at first it was the sheriff. So there wasn't much we could do about that. But this, now we're gonna have that also. And it's all those then indicated that maybe you would invite the Quad Cities, Iowa City. So then it would not just be the 30 or 40 times a week,
A year.
or a year, I'm sorry.
When you refer to the 30 or 40 times, is that just for our departments, is what your reference is? If we do pick up other departments around the city or around the state?
So, those agencies, Iowa City has their own range. All these agencies, whether it be Quad Cities, Iowa City, State Patrol, used to shoot out at Frank's, out at Nelson's property, way back when. State Patrol has since, put their own range together. It's right behind the post, the State Patrol post in Stockton. Quad Cities has their own range. Iowa City has a range that they shoot at. Not concerned about those agencies.
You said primary? Well,
Primarily.
primarily.
Right.
So if you're having some kind of special training, would you invite other counties?
Possible. Is that gonna be 30 or 40 times a year? Absolutely not.
Well, but it would be additional to the 30 or
And
40
again,
times a year.
when I say trainings, I'm not talking specifically shooting.
Okay.
This has been referred to time and time again. I've seen it in social media, I've heard it in these meetings, that this is a shooting range. Does it have a range component to it? Absolutely. There's gonna be more use with other trainings than there is just out shooting. It'll be used more so to conduct those other in-service trainings than going out and sending rounds down range.
So how many times a year will there actually be outside shooting approximately?
So with the sheriff's office, we're on the range 12 to 15 times a year.
So when you do the other trainings, that's not outside?
We do them outside, we do them inside, depends on what time of
And
year.
that doesn't create any noise?
That's not gunfire. When I say other trainings, we're doing OC trainings, powder spray. That's about all the noise it makes. We do baton training, so the expandable batons that we carry. We do taser trainings. We do CPR, AED, and first aid trainings. There's more to it than just the shooting range concept. Again, I would say that that facility will be used more for those non-shooting related trainings.
But there's still shooting and we already have it directly behind us. And with,
Is it gonna be 3 to 4 times a week? No.
but it doesn't matter if it's even 1 or 2 more times a week. We're already listening to it and much more than what we were supposed to be listening to it. And you don't realize how far this noise travels. I mean, we've talked to people and it's going clear back over to the other gravel roads past us.
Sure.
They can hear the Isaac Walton League, so they're definitely gonna hear you.
Sure.
So, so if you pass this today, and then the zoning comes, is what the public has to say then going to matter? Or is it going to be a done deal?
You guys have already given them $1 million. On your meeting 2 months ago, you guaranteed them $1 million.
Well, there were some contingencies on that we allowed them to start the process to look for the ground, and it's likely gonna come together eventually, and it might be a few years down the road, but, that money probably will come together.
You guaranteed it to them. It was a guarantee in your meeting. That's what Tony was in here asking for, that.
Yeah,
It was a
you're right.
Guarantee for $1 million, and you guys approved.
So how much the total budget for this gonna be?
Supposed to be a little over 2 million between the city and the
What?
county. Supposed to be a little over 2 million between the city and the county.
You're spending $2 million for the shoot gun, 12 to 14 times a year.
No.
That's
That's
just
not
the
what anyone
shooting,
said,
that's
sir.
just the shooting part.
Well, that's the biggest cost, making all those brims and digging the dirt, making the ponds, so you get dirt to build them. Seems like a lot of money to shoot only 14 times a year. I just know it happened the last time when shooting was approved and they didn't stick by that, so why should we believe that they're gonna stick by this?
What is the total cost that's gonna be paid for the ground?
Be a little over $20,000 an acre from what they said was what.
And
There's, the total cost of the ground purchase is gonna be $420,000
For 20 acres, correct?
for 20 acres.
but aren't you buying the whole thing?
We're just buying 20 acres.
20 acres.
Why did the thing for zoning, basically, didn't it say that you were buying the 49.95?
That refers to the parent parcel before the 20 acres is split up.
They got up to 5 years to buy that, though, correct?
I believe there's a contingency in the purchase offer that the
isn't that an exorbitant amount for 20 acres of ground? That you're spending our tax dollars.
To lower our real estate value. We wanted to sell our house with the gun range on both sides, but I'm sure we don't get as much as we would have if that noise wasn't down there. We have to pay for our taxes to lower our real estate value.
And
I just think you ought to put it somewhere else, some other community can listen to the music of gunshots.
And I would think there would be cheaper ground that you could buy that would be feasible for this. And I guess my next question, why wasn't this made more available to the public before now? Because it was so hush-hush to keep from where it was going to be or what was really being considered.
I think that the decision on a couple months ago was made to the public that we was possibly gonna move forward with it, and
But it was all in closed sessions.
There was
Nobody knew
little-
where it was going to be or what was really
Ma'am,
happening.
I hesitate to speak because ultimately I'm gonna have to recuse myself on this issue because, like you, we didn't find out until fairly late, and that was by design, where the land would be. And that's something that state law provides be dealt with in closed session. The reason is, if, acting as a purchaser of land, if a governmental entity had to make it known, hey, the government wants to buy X parcel of land, 2, 4, 6, whatever months in advance, what do you think's gonna happen to the price of that land? That's.
Well, this is already
Well,
absorbent for
I'm
that.
just answering your question,
I'm
so,
sorry.
and so that's it, there's never an intent to hush anything up. I did not even know until the agreement came to us that this was gonna be land owned by my client in my private business, so, I have to recuse myself from it, but that's the reason why, there's no, and I would reiterate the points that I've heard. This is a training facility, there will be shooting there, I understand the concerns, but I'm not gonna say anything more because I am unable to vote on this matter.
There'll also be lights, a lot of lights, I'm assuming, that'll be on 24/7,
I
I assume.
find that unlikely there'd be lights on 24/7. I mean, maybe a security
Isaac
light.
Walton has light on 24/7, which actually, when all the leaves are gone, shines in my bedroom window, so I have to keep that closed. You wouldn't have security lights or anything?
There might be a security light by the,
Because there is a house very close.
right,
So
it wouldn't
you're
be
very
anything,
close.
it wouldn't be anything different than your security light that you have on your property.
We don't have that.
I've got one right out in front of my house, I live here in town.
I'm scared of the dark.
For those times when we shoot at night, we shoot by flashlight, we shoot by headlights on cars, and we shoot by red and blue lights on the top of the cars.
So now we're gonna do this at night also?
Do we shoot at night?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna train at night.
When it gets dark.
What's hours of operation of this thing daily then?
So when we shoot at night, we typically do in the fall. So it's getting dark at 6, 7 o'clock at night. Are we shooting at midnight? No. So I don't want any white guys out there at midnight. I don't want to be out there at midnight.
But you could.
What time will you be cutting off and roughly?
That would be in a plan that has yet to be developed. But again, do we shoot at midnight? No, we don't.
Do you shoot at 10?
No. So in the fall is when we do our evening shoots or our low light shoots, specifically because it gets dark by 5:30, 6 o'clock. That's when we do our night shoots.
Okay, so you said it would
Let this go.
be too expensive to really shoot beyond what you normally do and stuff. But if I'm on the sheriff or the police force and I myself just wanna go practice, would I be able to go out there?
Outside of regular qualification time?
Yes.
Yep.
So, again, you're bringing on more shooting
Wait.
than what is stated.
There could be
Right.
somebody out there.
Is there somebody out there shooting? Yeah. Is it gonna be unlike anybody shooting on their property? No.
Yes.
Yes, because it's not their property. They're
Correct.
shooting,
Correct.
right.
But is it gonna be a daily event?
I'm confused on that statement. I thought this was closed to the public. I thought she just asked if it was open to the public, and I thought you said yes.
If she were on the sheriff's office, she
If
could
I was
shoot
on the
shoot
sheriff's
off.
office, could I go out and shoot whenever I wanted to on my own, because it wouldn't, they wouldn't be paying for my ammo or whatever?
Theoretically, somebody could go out there and shoot every day.
If they could afford the ammo. We shoot a box of 50 rounds a month for practicing outside of normal goals.
Are you, I guess, are you confident, I don't know how much you played a part of this process, are we confident that we searched all areas
So
and this is our only option?
This process started a year ago.
Longer than that.
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
I hired a consultant that looked at shooting range, training facilities, shooting ranges, what would be, and put the needs together, looked around the area for suitable properties, came back with recommendations. That's been the process. And then, last year, I think Tony came and said, they'd want up to, get the commitment for the board for 50% of up to $2 million. And this board said we would commit that for future funding.
How much would it hinder you guys in the future bringing other departments in for training if we limited the shooting just to our departments? Would that cause issues to bring those other departments in?
Is that something that can be talked about? Sure. Am I gonna give you a hard and steadfast yes
Too
or
late,
no?
it'd be too late then.
So again, a majority or a large amount of the training that's gonna be conducted is non-shooting related.
I don't think anybody's arguing about that part of it. We just don't wanna hear the shooting.
I wish we could give it a little more than just 2 months of time to make a decision on this. Maybe a little more research or try to find a bottom ground or something that has less impact on. Excuse me, what's that?
There was a bottom ground considered for a facility, what was that, 3-4 years ago?
Right.
And everybody came and said, this is a terrible location.
Dude,
Nobody
that-
wanted to hear it, and, I think the zoning or adjustment commission, whoever, didn't even take a decision on it.
Is that down in Cedar River bottom?
I believe so.
That was open to the public,
That was,
so there would've been shooting there. Could've been a lot of shooting all the time.
probably.
Just what he's saying here is like, we can be up to
Did
12
you
12 to
state your
6
name? Did he?
Chad Holiday, I live at 1571 North
Thanks.
Isaac,
Thank you.
Muscatine.
Thanks, Chad.
So what he's saying is we could be up against the noise in a 12-hour period, 6-7 days a week. You just said your officers can go out there shoot anytime they want, off the clock. So that's
They could.
so that's
Possible.
possibilities
Very
of
unlikely.
noise, very unlikely, you say that now. But it's possibilities.
My guys don't go out and shoot at the range that we have every day.
I'm not here to argue with you, I'm saying there's a possibility,
Okay.
correct, with
Correct.
your statement.
Possible.
So we already listened to this Saturday mornings and 2 times a night. I sponsored the Wilton Trail team, so I'm for young kids learning how to shoot. I support the blue 100%. The noise is an issue. With that being said, I wish we'd give it more than 2 months' time to maybe research another property.
If I'm understanding correctly, you said they've been looking at this for the last year or two. So
2 years.
even though it may not be
You
known to
approved
the
money
public,
You approved the money two months ago, correct?
but it sounds like the process to search out this land had been going on long before we approved that money.
But you just heard about the they've been researching it for 2 years, you just heard about that now also, right?
That's correct.
No.
Okay, so you
That's
said,
correct for me.
I mean, he wasn't here
That's
2
correct
years
for me.
ago.
Well, that's correct for him.
Yeah.
so you said there was another property considered. I think we're paying an exorbitant amount for this property. Were there any other negotiations for any other property to try to keep the costs down?
How
Not that
seriously
I'm
was
aware
that
of.
other, I mean, how far did things get with looking at that other property?
It's my understanding that other property that was deemed a possible location, the owner was not willing to
And this wasn't land that was for sale in this particular case.
Right.
I would encourage anybody to come to the meeting. What's been submitted to my office goes through the whole process of site selection, what was evaluated, the narrowing down. It's there. There was a consultant paid over 2 years ago to evaluate potential property in Muscatine County, so that when they came to you folks, they would be able to show that they had done their homework for the highest and best property. I don't think most of us are complaining about the facility. We're complaining about the shooting. The training and all that, I think, is a great thing. They need that.
Well, unfortunately, both departments are in need of a better shooting range and facility because of the issues they have on the other ones. If we continue to let the sheriff department shoot where they're at, knowing that there's a ricochet issue and somebody gets hurt or killed, we're gonna have a big liability issue for the county on our hands.
But can you go in and put some funding in those, where they're shooting now in some of those places, and make it so it is viable for them to use it?
I mean,
We're
you
not
could-
allowed to spend Muscatine County dollars in another county.
Or on private land. I mean, improving a private individual's land would also be a big
Is Frank
no-no.
Nelson not willing to sell, or Frank's
He's
estate
dead.
not willing to sell that, or, so.
That would be right behind us, no thank you. Or not right in front of us, no thank you.
There's the rub. Everybody wants the training, everybody wants the functional law enforcement, nobody wants to. And I agree, I wouldn't want it by my house.
That's what I just
I
said,
ha-
put it by your house.
Okay, I have
All
another
five of you
question.
move in and together and put
Okay.
it there for a while.
I haven't thoroughly looked at it or anything, but I looked at how the sites and how they started eliminating them. Well, one of the first ones I think was because of gravel roads. Well, usually maybe on a gravel road, you're gonna find more property that doesn't have houses around it. Just,
That may or may not be true, because when you look at the criteria of these ranges, you know, the truth of the matter is, there is very, very, very few acres that will even work for a shooting facility because of downrange issues and so on and so forth. It's not as simple as one might think it might be. And, so that's just, the selection group is very small on the acres that are even viable.
so basically then, if you're saying that, it sounds like this is the only site that would possibly work.
I didn't say that.
Well, you're kind of saying that.
I didn't say that, ma'am. I said there are very few places.
Okay.
Keep looking. There's quite a
So-
few houses where we live out there compared to a lot of agricultural areas. And there's quite a few people live out there that don't farm. So I think there's a higher density of people than other places you could find to put a range. And what really irks me is we have to put up with 2 of them if this goes through.
Okay.
Before you speak, I just
I'm
have
gonna-
one other quick question. Can we get the packet that will be going to zoning earlier than before the meeting?
I sent you everything you had requested.
Yeah, but the packet that will actually be going that, not day, I mean, can we get that, or?
I sent it out about 1 week ahead when you first development report.
Oh, you send it out to everybody?
Zoning commission members.
Okay, so anybody that wanted it?
Ma'am, if you'd like to speak, or, sir, if you'd like to speak.
We need to get this woman's name first.
Name and address, please.
Oh, Deanne Reed, 2460 155th Street.
State your name and address, please.
Todd Crackleo, 2505 155th Street. I am the adjoining property owner of the 49 acres of this ground where it's being built. I wish I'd had a prepared speech today, but I didn't believe that much was going to be going on here. But I've lived there for like 15 years, and like they said, the Isaac Walton League was already there. I hear the noise from that. When they was at Frank Nelson's, I could also hear the noise from that. I believe my property adjoining this property puts me at a higher stake than anybody that is here. They're gonna have to build berms, and you talked about the groundwater. The groundwater feeds, my tile is tied into that adjoining farm, and that all goes to that drainage ditch down below the property, which then goes down into the Nature's Conservancy, which the lady that owned all this property, Mrs. Griner, this conservancy is named after Mrs. Griner. She was a naturalist and a farm lady through and through. So now we're gonna possibly be contaminating that water with lead down into the conservancy where a lot of ducks and geese migrate and nest every year. There's an endangered mud turtle down there. That's why the property was built, I believe, to help sustain the Illinois mud turtle that is down there. I'm at the most stake here. Next door to this, I have grandchildren that can be within a 20 acres of the shooting range that they're gonna be firing at. And believe me, I support the police department, I really do. We need a training facility. But there's gotta be a better place than prime Iowa farm ground that had like a 92 or 93 CSR on it. They was advertising when it just sold. They had pattern tiled this whole farm, and that's what it was intended for, farm ground. Not for an outdoor shooting range. So like I said, I will be at the zoning and I will have a prepared statement. But I believe it should be somewhere. If it's minimal shooting, go put it somewhere else. Have the indoor training facility. Sounds great to me to have that. You know, there's shootings every day, and I believe our police department needs to be trained for that situation. Every day, there's shootings at Dollar Generals now and stuff. The world is just a crazy place, and we do need to be trained for that. But I just don't believe it needs to be located right next door to my property. I'm an Iowa farm boy through and through. My grandparents farmed. That's what I believe in, is farming. When I bought this farm in the country, it was because it was in the country, and it was farm ground, not a shooting range next door to me.
Okay,
And I thank you guys for your time.
thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me.
Carla Clevenger, 2516 150th Street. Like Todd said, Nature Conservancy is there, and it's there for a reason. We go back there all the time. Our property adjoins on the gravel road. We have livestock. Sometimes our animals get out, and I know all my neighbors that way. I don't have a regular time I go back there, and my husband's back there a lot. I don't wanna get shot at. I'm just not for it, just because it's convenient to be right off the hard surface road. There's no berm, there's no protection, and gunshots travel.
And I will say the construction cost, there will be a berm. I mean, we're not just gonna post targets out in the field. So,
Well, on that property, are you on the front part of it or on the back part?
we'll be shooting south or to the northeast. From
Okay, I'm on that north side.
Okay. And there'll be a berm, that's part of the design.
Is the berm back by the timber, or is it out toward the road? Which part are you on, the 40 acres?
South part.
It's the south part of so the 20 acres that you have will not be into the woods in that area?
No. Again, all this will be available in that packet for the zoning, where it'll actually lay out the plan map of the facility.
Can I speak? I believe, I heard it was the very east 20 acres of that 49 acres.
Yes, the
And
east
you would
side.
be shooting north, not south.
Correct.
And that is Charlie Lewis is the adjoining neighbor there.
To the north, yes.
Yep. Charlie Lewis had bought that property several years ago, and I know why he bought it, for hunting and to do stuff, and eventually he's gonna build a house out there now. He has a building there, which he has a permit for, and he gotten everything through. So now, if he would try to build a house anywhere close to there, I believe he would probably get denied a permit to build, because he's gonna be too close to an existing gun range that would be there, which would, I mean, he bought 30, 40 acres years ago with this dream, and now you guys are gonna limit him on what he can do on his property back there by this joining up to him.
Would that be an issue, Eric, if that,
Well, whether the shooting range and training facility is there or not, there's no guarantee that a house would be approved. All the property in this area is zoned A1. There's a separate process for considering, non-farm related housing in the county, so
That timber,
there's no guarantee that he'd be granted a special use permit whether there was a range there or not.
the range doesn't hinder that decision though, does it?
Nothing in our ordinance that would prohibit it if the range goes forward. It would all be based on the provisions in the zoning ordinance, the same as they are today.
Is there any state ordinance or anything like
Not
that?
that I'm aware of.
Would that
Just
timber
county
ground,
zoning is, we have home rule authority to establish zoning.
would that timber ground wouldn't be considered agriculture A1? right
Sure it
now?
is, it's only one.
Is it, it's
It's
only
only
one?
one, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, it's zoned A.
Okay.
It
So
looks like
it'd
it's
be
landlocked.
It'd just be the regular setbacks, 750 feet from the nearest residence.
Well, there's a number of criteria
Yeah,
that's
lots of stuff.
evaluated by the Board of Adjustment for rural
Yeah.
residences. Yes.
And that would definitely change once that gun range was in there, I would believe.
There's nothing in our provision that would, including the criteria for special use permits that
I'm sure glad I'm not him owning that ground. That's worse than where I'm at, but him owning that ground, I feel really sorry for that gentleman. Good neighbor, and I just believe that's gonna be.
he's obviously been notified as an adjoining.
Yes, he has.
residence.
We've talked several times.
What
With
is,
the public access to the Nature Conservancy going right in that area, will that be a problem?
Where's the public access? There's no.
I'm wrong?
Public access to the Nature's Conservancy is up my driveway, and it's pedestrian foot traffic only.
Okay.
That's where the access to the Conservancy for the public is.
Is there hunting back in the Nature Conservancy's land?
There's very
you can
limited.
get some special, the Nature Conservatory will let a few people bow hunt, or they used to let a few people turkey hunt. You have to go to them and then they give you a specific area that you can do that in, but
And,
Okay, yeah, I'm just looking at it here,
Yeah.
just
yeah,
curious.
I believe certain times of the year, for the benefit of the Conservancy, the Clevengers are access to run their cattle in there. It's like the old buffalo running through stuff. It helps beat the ground down and stuff. So the Clevengers do
Every year?
migrate their cattle into there
Right.
for the Conservancy's
Okay.
wishes and agreement, so.
Okay.
would it jeopardize the purchase of this land if we possibly tabled this item to make sure we exhausted, and I know they've said we've been working on it a year or two already, so maybe that's already been exhausted, but if we tabled this, would it jeopardize the purchase of this land if we made sure we exhausted other locations?
Well, I think you wanna view this more as an option than a purchase, because there's a number of contingencies on a lot of what-ifs that have to happen prior to the purchase of this land. So,
If we vote yes today, what is the procedures after this, or what are the steps that will be taken, I guess? City,
It'll go to the city on next Thursday for their approval, much like what you folks are doing today. And then next Friday morning, the 8th, I believe at 10 o'clock, 10:45. This purchase offer is contingent upon zoning commission approval. I believe the language, I'm not looking at the language of purchase offer, but if the zoning commission does not approve it, the city and county are not obligated to purchase the property.
Correct.
right, it's like an option, this is like a purchase option.
But if the city decides they wanna do it and it passes his office, you guys are stuck. You can't get back out of it if you agree to it today.
We can not fund it. Then we own 20 acres. Or half of 20 acres.
Well, we'd be liable on a purchase agreement.
Yeah.
It'd be like, in that case, it'd be like breaching a contract.
So you're kinda stuck.
It would be binding, I think what you're wondering is, it would be binding if the contingencies are met, is what I understand.
What are the contingencies?
They're in section 23 of the purchase agreement. There's a zoning contingency, a subdivision contingency, a water drainage restriction, council and board approval. And then there's, let's see, granted an option to purchase, a right of first refusal, which I think, and I have not read that, but it
So how
looks
do we
like
get a copy of that?
we can print out for you.
I don't know, several, because there's a lot of people that will be at.
How about, was it with the board package? It was published with the board package.
So it's on the website.
It's on the website, you can download it and read it.
Okay,
Okay.
what's,
If you go to Board of Supervisors And then about in the middle of the page, you can see the most recent agenda and current agenda packet.
So you're saying something about drainage on this ground, isn't that, I'm above them and mine goes to that same drainage ditch, isn't that gonna affect my water flow from my farm and tiles I'm already tied into?
Well, it says it may not, the buyers agree that none of the restrictions will, or none of the improvements or use of property will restrict the flow of water from the remaining portion of the property.
From his property, but my property feeds into that.
No, it wouldn't, I don't believe you're a party to the agreement, sir. So I think that it,
I'm not part of the agreement.
right.
It's gonna affect me.
Right, but the agreement itself only refers to that contingency.
Right, but as a joining landowner, you cannot impede my water flow from my property onto the next property. I believe that's Iowa law.
But they can make you dump it at the fence line. There will be a stormwater prevention plan that'll have to be, if we move forward to be able to involve the disturbance of more than 1 acre of land, so an NPDES permit through the DNR, stormwater, SWIP plan, as part of the development. As part of the purchase offer, it mentions, like you said, not impeding water flow. If the seller is directly upstream per se from this, then if they're not allowed to impede them, it's not gonna impede anyone up above them either, because they have to allow flow through. The range design does have accommodations for stormwater flow through, stormwater retention. Again, anybody that wants these documents, let me know, we can make them available. Is drainage water considered stormwater? Yeah.
All right, I think everyone here has had an opportunity to speak. And I'll just read what's on the table currently. Discussion of possible action to approve a real estate purchase agreement subject to approval by the Muscatine City Council and execution of a 2080 agreement between the city of Muscatine and Muscatine County. That's what we have on the table currently.
I made a
Jeff made a
motion.
motion, I don't think there was a second.
There was not a second.
And I've got a motion by Jeff. Is that correct? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I got a second by Kurt.
How about Kurt's idea,
All-
table it?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
And I abstain.
So it passes 4-1.
No, 4-0.
4-0, I'm sorry. Okay. Next is discussion and possible action to approve the minutes of the August 21st, 2023 regular meeting.
So, second.
Motion by Nathan, second by Jeff. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Correspondence, Jeff, did you have anything?
Yeah, I got an email this morning and a communication from Aaron Steffens, and Aaron lives up off Moscow Road somewhere. He is in opposition to a shooting range. That was it.
Okay. Nathan?
I received an email, looks like late last night, gentleman expressing, dismay at the decision, what is, he called a decision to approve, the hog confinement, at 1660 Wood Atwood. I would just wanna note that for the record, but also hasten to add, we don't approve anything. It's, we score the matrix, and then that gets passed on to the DNR. We are simply here to see where all of the boxes are appropriately checked.
Okay.
Oh, another thing, I also received from Lee Gertz, the city manager of West Liberty, and this may have come to all of us, notice of a voluntary annexation of about 4 acres west of town.
Okay.
And that was, I think we got that on
Yep.
Yeah.
the 24th.
Yeah, okay. I had the voluntary annexation as well, and I had one correspondence via text in regard to questions regarding the shooting range, and that's all I had. Danny?
I had that same email, on that, Steve, was it Laurie, that was upset about the hog confinement we approved a few weeks ago. That's all I had.
Okay, Kurt?
And I received the same ones.
Okay. Very good. Committee reports. Jeff, you got anything?
Yeah, on the 21st, I had the Eastern Iowa Mental Health Region, and on the 23rd, I had the Bi-State Commission.
Okay. Do you have anything, Nathan?
I did not.
Did not? Okay. On Monday, the 21st, I had the Conservation Board, and on Wednesday, the 23rd, I had Bi-State. Danny?
8/21, I had Muscatine Valley Workforce Development full board meeting. That's all I had.
Okay. Kurt?
On the 22nd, I attended a workshop for the Lower Cedar River Water Management Association of West Branch covering cover crops and bioreactors and their practices. Was well attended by both counties, Cedar and Muscatine. It was a good day for that. 24th, I had the Muscatine County Fair Board. And then just a update, the last race at the Muscatine County Fairgrounds will be on the 2nd. That'll be it for racing it.
And I just want to pass on, we went to the rodeo on Saturday. Thought they did a great job with it, so pass on my personal attaboy to the group.
And I think they've already signed a contract to come back next year.
Awesome.
It did go good for both parties.
I learned that mutton busting was a thing, which is the cutest friggin' thing I've ever seen in my life.
You're too big for that.
Little 3-year-olds riding sheep. It was
You've already outgrown it, Nathan. Don't sign up.
That's what they told me when I tried to get on.
All right, thank you. Next is items with the administration office, discussion and possible action to approve a proposed class specification for a administrative/clerk's, elections clerk at the auditor's office. All right,
Okay, you have a description in your packet. This is not a new position, that it's a new clerk position, but it's got a different title. I have someone who has, today's her last day, and she's currently my second deputy, and she has taken a different job, so this is building a new job description to fill the duties that she had done. It just doesn't have the second deputy title to it. So this would still be under my 4 staff that I currently have, and to approve the
So-
grading.
There's gonna be a job posting to replace the one position, but they'll probably come in at a lower position and pay.
It would be a lower salary for that seat in my office because it doesn't have the second deputy
And
title
then
with it.
I think her intent is to appoint one of her existing staff as second deputy, so they would get a raise.
I'll move the approval.
I'll second.
motion by Jeff, second by Danny. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Action to accept August 2023 payroll claims.
I'll move the approval.
Second.
I got a motion by Jeff, second by Nathan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Anything other, Nancy?
I don't have anything else.
Thank you. Receive information from county employees. Do I have any county employees that wish to address the board on any issue currently? Seeing no one come forward, we'll move on to receive comments from the public. Do I have anyone from the public that would like to address the board? State your name and address, please.
Yeah, I'm Jerry Carson, 2440 Edgewater Road. Last week when I was here, Barry gave an indication that he would have more information about the 245th Bridge this week, but I see that he's not here, so.
Yeah. And I have no new information on that. I saw no correspondence come through on that, so I can't add to this.
And I think what Jim indicated is that we're supposed to be getting some information back from the appraiser. We had hoped to see it last week, we're supposed to see it this week, and then the committee will do what they do with that information before it goes on a
You
board.
guys have a meeting next week on Monday since it's a holiday?
No, it'll be 2
No.
weeks.
Well, then I'll just see y'all 2 weeks.
So you're saying, Nancy, that the appraisal, that didn't come back like he had hoped?
No, we're still waiting on it, but the last correspondence I saw, the indication was that we would see it this week.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Do I have anyone else in the public that would like to address the board on any issues at all? Seeing no one come forward, it is 12 minutes after 10, and we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.